Well, one thing that impressed me was the rapid response to our questions. Not only did you provide an opinion, but you were able to back it up with some sort of reference to a specific article or a quote or some historical fact. That really did impress me quite a bit. You hit the question about the small states right on target, although we had economic concerns as well. I did appreciate that. I enjoyed listening to you, and I feel that I've been part of a very healthy conversation about the Constitution.
You are always delightful. I mean, I remember judged you. I think it's all blending together, but on Saturday I judged you. It's an interesting conversation. I have enormous respect for your knowledge and your poise and the way you express your ideas, and it's shows grounding in many, many things. The only thing I will say by way of criticism is, I guess, echoes a little bit what I said on Saturday. I am concerned that you are sometimes too quick to answer questions with the first thing in your mind rather than taking a beat and thinking about it. And I think you will inevitably, I think there are times you answer the question in a way that's not really responsive to the specific question, but it's not because you don't know the answer. It's because I think sometimes you don't listen carefully enough to the question. And I think a perfect example of that was on the method of ratification of the amendments. You knew the answer when you eventually got to it and you hit it out of the park. You were exactly right. You even knew which one was different, but your initial answer was just not responsive to the question. And I suggest that's because you're not always listening to the questions carefully enough. That's a pretty specific, critical comment. And I only make that comment to you because the respect I have and how good you are, and I think that you could. I say that in a way that you could get even better. But thank you. I really enjoyed this.
On that question, did you answer that only one amendment was approved by state legislatures?
No, by the state convention.
Okay, good. I greatly enjoyed your opening comments. I've said for a long time that there's little new in the Constitution. Everything that's in the Constitution comes from state constitutions and bills of rights, the Articles of Confederation, and the Northwest Ordinance. The genius is how they put it together. So that was a nice comment there. And you go back to Magna Carta, and you were showing how things were taken from Magna Carta. I like your reference to citizens as signatories. It reminded me of what John Jay said. It takes a while to make citizens out of subjects. So this was part of that process of making citizens out of subjects. A considerable difference in how you behave as an individual under a government. I like your reference to Jonathan Swift. We don't often hear things from the literary side, but they certainly were commentators and satirists of the government they were living under, and Americans read them avariciously. Some other things, pseudonyms. I think, were very good on that. I would expand upon it that sometimes they wanted to know who they were, and they used pseudonyms over and over again, the same pseudonym, so that they would have that recognition. Thomas Paine didn't want to share with anybody else. Everything he wrote, he wanted people to know it was common sense. So he would write, sign Common Sense. They knew it was Thomas Paine. This goes on and on and on for certain individuals. They adopt a pseudonym and they keep it. So they keep the semblance of anonymity. They go along with the etiquette of the day, but they want to get rid of anonymity. Anonymity is important. Also, remember, when you have dueling and caning going on. So it could be important for your life that you keep your anonymity. The Confederation Congress, it was important there that the Federalists had a bandwagon going on. They wanted to keep this ratification movement going from the get-go. Gouverneur Morris in the Philadelphia Convention said there's going to be an initial unanimity in favor of the Constitution. but it will fade away very quickly. So we've got to act while the iron is hot. And they had an overwhelming majority in the Confederation Congress, Federalist did, but they didn't want to show any opposition whatsoever, especially Richard Henry Lee proposing a Bill of Rights. So they compromised. Get rid of opposition, get rid of that Bill of Rights off the journal, and we'll send it without approbation. Washington, when he heard this, he said, well, unanimity and approbation was best, but if we can't have unanimity with approbation, let's get rid of the approbation, get the semblance of unanimity. And so when these great politicians put forward, the Congress unanimously sends this to the states, it appears as if they're endorsing it. Washington says everyone isn't able to peek behind the curtain to see what was really done. So there was some deception there. You wonderfully used Richard Henry Lee as a good example of anonymity in writing things with pseudonyms. And you referred to Federal Farmer. Well, it's interesting to note that Federal Farmer has been recognized for a long time as Richard Henry Lee, incorrectly, I might say. And the reason he was assigned that in the beginning was out of disrespect for him. Richard Henry Lee had been an opponent of George Washington during the war. And so if you can taint this wonderful anti-Federalist piece written by this enemy of Washington, it sort of discredits Federal Farmer. Richard Henry Lee was not the author. He did write a letter in which to the governor, Edmund Randolph, and that's published, surprisingly, under his name, not with a pseudonym. So he did come out there. And finally, the legislatures, you again got it right, but going a little bit further, there are 11 bicameral legislatures and 2 unicameral legislatures. If you go through that process of ratifying, you've got to run the gauntlet 24 times. 24 houses of representatives, 13 of those, and 11 senates. And that's a lot more than if you just go to 13 state conventions. So from a practical point of view, it was easier to use conventions over and above the theoretical things that you did very well. And furthermore, there are a lot of well-known people that you want in the convention that are not serving in legislatures. George Washington is not in the legislature, George Clinton, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so you want these prominent people to serve in the convention to discuss the Constitution and give their point of view. Finally, I'm just making a lot of points here because you raised a lot of points and you did a very good job throughout. And I am, frankly, not at all surprised when you have one of the best teachers in the country as your... What can we expect other than a great performance? And that's what you gave us. So another round of applause for you and for your teacher.